and Marta. So let's continue with our next panel. Could you please be seated, because we have another panel focused on urban hubs, last mile logistics. Yesterday we said that technology is changing the spaces in which we live. In the afternoon we said that technology is changing our workspaces. Today we're seeing how retail is also being impacted by the disruption of advanced technologies. And in our next panel we're going to see new opportunities being opened thanks to last mile logistics, with inclusion of new technologies such as big data, the IoT, etc. Before starting, I would like you to know that we have Tom Selva, which is the CEO of Mayordomo, which was one of the startups accelerated in BMP program 2018 that has received the award, the Best Skylab award. So please, a big round of applause to Mayordomo. Well, I'll explain how we won. I would like to thank all of you, BMP, the consortium. It was a wonderful collaboration which generated entrepreneurship and innovation in Barcelona. But not just for this year, next year, I hope that in 10 years' time we're still here fostering improvements in Barcelona. We're a leading hub in the world. Thank you, Tom. I think you can take a seat now. And I introduce the other members of the panel. We have Alex Corbacho, co-founder and managing director of Box Motions. Also Daniel Pardo, projects and mobility manager of Saba. He still needs his microphone, but he will be with us very quickly. And the moderator is Alfredo Diaz-Araca, the president of IE Real Estate Club. I think that Alfredo has his mic, and let's wait for Daniel so that we are complete. Maybe you can make the introduction. Congratulations for your award. We've been competitors. I was in Citybox a few months ago, and these guys took locations from us. We suffered. But competition is always good. It makes you improve. The first thing I would like to say is I would like to thank Barcelona Meeting Point for inviting me to present this interesting panel on Utopicus and Colonial for sponsoring, and also for choosing me to be here. Because in Madrid we also speak Catalan. The speaker was speaking Catalan. I've spent 3 years in Barcelona, so more or less I can speak Catalan. I wanted to introduce this panel with a personal story. When Josep proposed me to do this, I tried to think about my childhood when I had about 10. When I was about 10 years old, I remember that in Madrid everything was closed on Sundays. If you wanted to buy candy, sweets, you need to go to a specific shop. In August, July, there was nothing. Everything was closed. You had to cross the city to shop for groceries. So almost more than 30 years have elapsed, and now with a click you can get anything. E-commerce is increasing a lot. What could I tell you? You already know this. It's even creating mobility issues in cities. It was the ugly duck of real estate industry. The logistics segment was like the ugly duck in this industry, and now it's growing a lot. Investment figures are 14% of investment this year so far. We're over the figures of last year, and it's constantly growing. Let's speak about the new change in logistics and cities, and for that we have 3 people with 3 completely different models, but which are complementary. They supplement each other. We have Tom, which is the CEO of Mayordomo Smart Point, Daniel Pardo from Saba, and Alex Corbacho from Box Motions. So very quickly, could you please present your company? This is some sort of elevator pitch. You just have a few minutes. Thank you. Mayordomo Smart Points are smart points located at the lobby of big office buildings, residential buildings, different places around the city, and a user can request and pick up any product from any online shop and any service, like a pharmacy and many others. So convenient and fast. Alex, I'll give you a piece of information. 300,000 items. This is what we have on average at home in the Western Hemisphere. And this is growing. Just 2% of these items are used on a daily basis. So we need to use supplementary spaces. So we change the paradigm of these spaces. We do things in a very simple way. We go to our clients' homes, we take pictures, we create an inventory. Customers can access that. They can, if they are going to move to a different place, they have everything they need. So we're working in the areas in which homes are located, and we have our storage rooms in the periphery of cities, and thus providing value to other real estate assets thanks to technology. In my case, I think you're familiar with Saba. We manage parking spaces. I don't need the presentation, I just need the last slide. I'm in mobility projects with my team. We transform parking spaces. Historically, it's an infrastructure located at strategic places in cities in order to store or to park vehicles. We'll see how mobility is being impacted with the new consumption habits and also urban good distribution. And our project office is changing this view of parking into a new service hub where you don't just park your car, but it's also a meeting point for different aspects with an impact in the mobility ecosystem. So now we know all of you. So the question is, okay, hubs, a city. Well, this is very easy. You just store things and all. How do you call it? Smart points, smart boxes, smart lockers. No, it's smart points. Yeah, what's changing? Yeah, you need a different term. What are the requirements for logistic hubs for installing these smart points? This is the real estate side of it, but this is PropTech, and PropTech means property technology. What's the role of technology in these new logistics hubs? So for us, the important thing is the end user. We always deal with the user. The demand comes from the user. We're growing faster because users want convenience and a different supply. The big players who are delivery companies or big real estate companies, they want to understand users too. They want to know how users want to receive these products. And we've realized very quickly what the standards are, what requests do we have when we start these talks. We're trying to think in 20 years' time. Big corporations are protecting the market, and we're saying users want this right now, they will want this in 20 years' time, and the city needs to change this way so that in 20, 50 years' time, these solutions are already in place. You were asking about the role of technology in hubs. I agree that everything revolves around customers or end users, but it comes hand in hand with progressive changes. Perhaps it doesn't make sense to think about what are we going to do so that then users adapt. That's what he said. It's rather, what do we think this use is headed, and what use can we make of technology to create changes? There are changes in both lines, in two lines. Things that we already have that can be used in a more efficient way. For example, this is the case of Mayordomo, which adds an additional technology. Or in our case, how we use resources in a different way, different resources to solve the same problem. Or maybe more structural technological changes, such as autonomous vehicles. So at the end, the customer will be at the center of this change. And I think that this is not about doing something so that this is cool, so that this makes sense with the technology we're going to use and the service we'll provide to the user. You were asking about key elements to locate a hub. Of course, location, access. We think that parking spaces can offer a lot of things. It's not just the location of the hub per se, it's how it's built to provide this special point. We know that distributing goods in a city such as Barcelona is becoming more complex. The hub is located at a strategic place, and there are access facilities for unloading vehicles or for pedestrians that give us an edge. We are using technology for that. As he was saying, we need technology for this. We need 3D sensors, different elements to turn this parking space, this ugly infrastructure we don't like, into a hub with sufficient technology to support the customer's experience, both of the distributor and the user, always putting users at the center. You've mentioned something which is very interesting. When we refer to users, we tend to think in people actually going to the smart point to pick up the product. In your case, the person that gives you those things, or in your case too. But I think that with regards to logistics, there's a complicated balance, because you have different customers. You have carriers, you have the city. How do you play with this balance? You need to satisfy 3 customers with 3 different needs, because as a user, you want something at your doorstep, but carriers want different things. How do you strike the balance in your businesses? This is a very good question. We have to work with this every day. We don't usually speak about this. Mayordomo was launched 2 years ago, but we've worked for 4 years in Barcelona in a garage. We were testing things. We launched a product which is similar to Amazon Locker. So a delivery guy through an app could deliver in something that we called Smart Locker back then. So each of these customers, these delivery guys, needed to download an app or find a way to talk to us to make a delivery. And this system was a bottleneck. There were many solutions for that. In the end, they were going to deliver for free, but they had to go through all this administrative process. And we said this is not good enough. If we want to provide value, we need an open source standard so that any company, any delivery guy, any online shop can deliver for free with no technological barriers. They say, I need to deliver this to this person, as you would deliver it at the person's home, and you put it in the smart point. And we changed our perspective. It's not a locker anymore, it's a point where everyone can deliver. And in our first year, we said this is a free standard, open source standard. Your costs are going to be reduced, delivery is guaranteed, you're going to have thousands of users that will want to use your products but also your services, and that's what opened the market for us. Alex, in your case, you'll explain this, but you're using other people's logistic storage rooms. So how do you get the virtuous cycle? We're a highly managed marketplace. That's how it's called, which basically means that we have different customer points and we connect the end customer demand with other logistic operators where we store their things and also transportation. We have different points, not just end customers and transportation. We add logistic storage room. The basic idea here is starting with our customers. We realized that customers needed to go through all these contact points by themselves to store their settee, their winter clothes, cupboard. They had to do everything, take it to a storage room or contact a provider, a moving company, completely offline, and they had to connect all these points and do everything by themselves. So we saw there was the possibility to connect all of them. Customers want things at home. They don't want to dismantle the cupboard or take the settee down 5 floors through the stairs. So we have a series of enablers or technological platforms for each of the points that simplify this process. For example, a company that works with heavy objects. We have different applications that describe all the process step by step, and they help you to generate the online inventory of all the items that will be stored. So we started by sorting out the basic problem, which was the user's problem, and then we continued by sorting out additional problems of other stakeholders involved in the value chain that were not integrated. You have limitations because you're in charge of brick and mortar. You need to provide a service to people who were not your customers. It's very complicated because part of our parking network is public. So we have the administration, the end user, the new customers we have, such as my colleagues here, or intermodality companies. So combining all these stakeholders is complex, and thanks to that I have a job. And that's why I have an office for integrating applications and mobility. It's very complex. We're trying to reorganize spaces. We have an important role to play in the city mobility, providing support for all these aspects, because as you know, the goal now is to give the city back to the citizens hiding personal vehicles. We are always bumping into bikes, scooters, etc. Then e-commerce is growing exponentially. Then we have failed deliveries, which is also a problem. Combining all this is very interesting for us. You've mentioned users, what users want. Tom, this is for you. We have the feeling that users want everything just with a click. I remember a tweet I saw back in 2014. Uh, one person was speaking about a member of the real estate industry. I'm not going to give you a name. He said, I'm in the real estate business. E-commerce has nothing to do with me. And he used a piece of news that said Google is fighting against Amazon to deliver in 4 hours. 2014, 4 hours. Now it's 2 hours. This is a philosophical question. I think the big companies of e-commerce are pushing us to be to have immediate deliveries, but not users. Because in the past, shops used to be closed on Sundays, and you just you didn't go shopping. So maybe it's the big corporations, the ones pushing, and maybe thanks to that you have your business, and maybe users would be more flexible in other aspects. Are we creating the anxiety to have everything right now? I know it's rather a philosophical question. Yes, I understand your explanation. I always think about what Ford asked its users. He said, well, we want faster horses. And he said, I'm going to give you a car. And they said, oh, I didn't think of a car. Once they had a car, they wanted a faster car, a safer car. So Amazon created the availability of many products that you could have overnight and maybe in 2 hours. And now users are imagining better things. I want this right now. I don't want to go downstairs to pick it up. I want it to reach my smart point. That creates opportunities. And this creates a problem. I think users don't actually want this. Users are not aware of the cost of all this in other aspects, mainly the environment, the planet. If you receive a package in 4 hours, this is 4 times worse for the environment. There are 4 times more CO2 emissions. It's more expensive for you and for your children in the future. You should know this, but Amazon is never going to tell you this. I think new trends, new companies should be more aware of the fact of our end users' values. Maybe you cannot explain everything, but in the future we want to be more sustainable. And we're always trying to have these talks, these discussions with the big corporations when we have them, and we want to provide technology that provides value in the short, mid, and long term. Alex, you've said that very often you think about how the future would look like. And now that's something which is very fashionable, which is co-living. I think housing is going to be different. Families have less members, a couple and a child, a couple with no child. So I'd like to see how you fit your business model. I think you're providing a good solution for co-living developers. In Spain, this is more difficult. You see mobility outside of it. We try to stay in our cities, even in our neighborhood, so that my parents help me take care of my child. But how do you see the future? The future with co-living and the talk with those players who are also your customers? Yes, this trend exists, and I would never think about the future. I would say this is happening right now. And today we have people living by themselves or in co-living. 1 out of 20 people and are already renting storage rooms or similar solutions. There's a high penetration of this solution. And how do we tackle this change or approach this change? The cornerstone is that you need to think what's causing this trend. We have less and less spaces. We need to use resources in a more efficient way. So if I have 5 rooms in my flat, maybe I can have 5 people living there, although they do not belong to the same family. In our case, we add something else to this efficiency. And the lifestyle of people doesn't need to change. We can adapt to the lifestyle people choose. If there are 5 people living together in the same flat, the room you have with all your rubbish, that sort of cave you never open the door of, we all have such room at home. You have to take it outside. You need a storage room. If you reorganize a residential building next to your building to have storage rooms, that puts real estate pressure, space pressure in that area. Take it outside. Take it outside. And make everything more sustainable. Lifestyle. We're going to end up living like these hotels you've seen in Japan. So let's do things in a smart way. This is our approach, and this way we connect with millennials, which likes our services, because whether they're located in Barcelona, Madrid, London, they can access their things, but also high value, that really appreciate this additional space, the convenience of just contacting a single provider to have everything. And this is what's going to hold through time.
It's true, I mentioned co-living, but look, my parents just moved into a smaller house and they sold all their stuff. And I forgot about that. There's a future with the developers think about not only selling the house but also services. Things like the ones you offer could be interesting. Daniel, you mentioned something. I'd like you to provide concrete pieces of data at dark spaces and parking spaces, but of course, if you have new carriers coming in, customers, people that are renting scooters, your physical space needs to change. What are you doing right now concerning this topic? Parking spaces are essential for us because they give us immobility, actually. Instead of vehicles moving around in an inefficient way, they should be parked. It's better. So we understand that parkings can favor flux and reduce traffic in cities. As I was saying, we are working in hubs as concentrators. We are opening 2 lines. The first are delivery points, cargo, loading, shedding points, concerning modal interchanges, the points where users know that we can serve them, and also as a capillary distribution, so we boost capillary distribution through lockers. What are we doing? We are adapting our infrastructures. There's 3G in all floors of the of parking, which is paramount, because without connectivity there isn't any service. Otherwise, nothing we do can actually work. People cannot open their lockers, etc. we're worried about CO2, and we are transforming parking lots at the infrastructural level, putting LED lightings. We're also working on mobility as service, planning 100% digital products, which can get embedded in other services, and we can do end-to-end planning, operation with modality services, also vehicle services. Distribution centers that offer this kind of distribution. We are working closely with SEAT. All this problematic you're putting on the table concerning the need and concern with the environment, how to add mobility to goods deliveries, we are that we didn't point out, called public administration. It is the all-seeing eye. It's one of your clients, and we deal with it. There are more and more traffic restrictions. I agree with them, by the way, but it's true that it has impacts that are very important. There was an article published, shown at the BBC a few years ago, speaking about the fact that parking takes about 60 minutes and they're just running around. It's true that the administration tackles the problem in the simplest way. You just curtail traffic and that's it. But they don't take the needed measures to speak to the developers of hubs which could deliver solutions. What would you ask of the public administration? I don't know if there are any people working in public administration here, so that they could participate in the conversation. We're not sure whether to integrate them within the conversation. How do you see its role in all of these troubles? Concerning mayordomo, I'm sure you agree as well. We speak with Barcelona, Zurich, Vienna, many cities in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, how to provide solutions to this serious problems, because we have more trucks that cannot be parked, there are more car crashes, etc. All of us are trying to solve this, and we do it somewhat. We always require agility. We all believe that we have the best solution. What I ask for is versatility, always. I want to sit and gather with everyone. It is true that Danielle offers solutions that are more agile at the moment. And if we can gather together and, thanks to the public administration, discuss it and have a quicker collaboration so that we can follow some guidelines, well, then it would be better. What happens otherwise? We have scooters. We know that there are scooters that are parked very badly on the street and they create problems. They're being fined 15,000 euros a day, and scooter people don't care. They see it as a necessary cost. So I think we should glimpse the model again, and so we have to think, okay, let's allow certain things to happen, and then we measure the development after a year with pilot projects. This is being done. There are cities such as Sant Cugat, or smaller ones like Calles de Montjuïc, that say, oh, I want to innovate. How do I do this? Let's propose this opportunity. And then what happens? The bigger And culturally harder is a city, such as cities like Barcelona, the harder it is to do things like this. When we're speaking about the largest players in 2050, when we have billions more people in the world, they will be looking for new cities. These cities will want these technologies, and the future cities, the cities of the future, if we don't change our way of thinking, won't be Barcelona, Zurich, or Vienna. It will be new cities. So it could be in Nigeria, in Northern Africa. Those are the ones that are requiring solutions from us. Alex? Yes, I believe it's a question of speed, different speeds. A new model that is based on a technological shift, and this shift can be required from the market. This is natural from the marketing point of view, but it's not natural from a public administration point of view because it goes against the change they want, inevitably. You were speaking of agility. It's the same concept that Tom mentioned. We mustn't curtail natural processes. If there's a lifestyle process that is way more efficient and it's happening, let's try to adapt soon so that the pieces fit, because the pieces already fit. You know, Daniel, be careful. Be careful because you're a dealership, you know, so be careful. You said important things. We mentioned distribution. We see there's pollution and traffic and accident problems. As you say so well, we are boosting low emission zones, and we all agree on that as well. We must update all these car issues. We are seeing public space issues throughout micromobility vehicles that we see around. I hope we get more speed, of course, but we know that this is more complex. In the end, if we all understand that there's a shift in culture and shift in technologies that are helping us getting somewhere, and the administration is starting to understand this discourse, we need this to be conveyed, and we need to get it because we are working in providing new services that isn't only parking. We want parking to be an intermodal point, to be a loading point, for instance. We need it to become a capillary distribution point, and then we find licensing problems as well. We start being a parking space. We want to get in line with this message, but we find difficulties on the part of the administration. So we ask them to help us to be able to respond to their message. Then we can create new opportunities, new agencies with public actors that boost actions. The main axis here is that the public sector should drive and free up things. The administration is an important axis. It helps us regulate. It helps us focus its aspect. It must help us, otherwise it's really hard. Great, we will give agile courses to the administration. So I have been nice as a moderator, so I'm going to open up the Q&A part. If you have to ask any questions, I have the microphone. Try to trick them. You have mentioned delivering to the client. receiving the product that is in a storage, how does it get to a parking space? Yes, the goal is in line with the message of the administration. The trailer gets to Finbayes, and from then on, with electric vehicles, it can get to close to Barcelona, and then we have a capillary distribution with micromobility vehicles or on foot. This is what we're doing. There's so many initiatives on the part of neighbors and people with disabilities. And all this last mile part ends up being simplified, but we need the access to this first ring. I just wanted to know what is being expected, because yes, the Sinbayes is a different ring. A vehicle that comes from Sinbayes and that comes at Barcelona may not have enough load to go back to Sinbayes. Yes, they'll be able to load at the parking. Yes, we have an unloading. And then from a free zone, we're speaking about southern Barcelona, there are many vehicles within Barcelona and going back to the free zone. The traffic is very intense within the city. Yes, but you could distribute in different time zones. We could deliver at night or at peak hours, at non-peak hours, sorry, throughout this first ring, and then the last mile distribution could be delivered at the expected time for the users. Hello, I have two questions. Can you foresee smart points in a public zone, public spaces? Second question. The last mile storage must depend on its location, right? Is it within the center of the city? Which size does it need to start to be efficient? I will answer the first question. Concerning the first question, we will have smart points and public zones. And answering the first question, we will have a system where they will be delivered and picked up in smart zones with a circular route so as to maximize efficiency. Concerning public points, these depend on the administration and on collaborations as well. We're trying to advance as fast as possible. The technology exists to do it with zero emissions from outside the city. It depends on the standards that we want to follow on the part of the delivering companies. We are able to have hubs outside of the city. They don't need to be central. But the follow-up of these spaces that are more agile, such as Saba parkings, need to exist so that we absorb these capillary zones that do not allow us to go as fast as we wished with the administration. I think this perhaps answers the second question in part. Concerning the second question, I bet Daniel can hit the sweet spot of optimization. But I would like to add that to calculate where the optimum point is located, it's really important to know what we're going to be doing there exactly. We think a lot about distribution, new goods, and delivering to the client. In the next few years, I believe that we will be seeing services that go beyond e-commerce, that will need to move many goods around within and without the city. For instance, laundromats or laundries. Another example is what we do is just store your goods. These fluxes are complement one another, and we can build much more efficient spaces within the urban hub with many different abilities according to location, kind of use, and many other things. There is not one single answer to concerning optimum capacity. We will see many combinations. It's true. As to draw conclusions, this is a fascinating subject. We are just starting because we have a long way to go. We have many players. I think we need many negotiating tables to get to conclusions. I thank you so much. This has been very interesting. So, Giuseppe, go ahead. A strong round of applause for our 4 amazing panels. So we're finishing the mid-morning. We have a 10-minute coffee break next door. You could keep speaking with the speakers, and you may be able to tackle details concerning other subjects. At 11:20, at 11:30, we await you here. Thank you very much.